Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amalia Salsabilah and I want to explain my summary corporate governance from week 9 until 15. The first is definition and theory of governance. Firstly, we should clarify what we mean by the rules, and the concept of collective is the second element in the definition that is worth dwelling on. Thirdly, we should dwell on what we mean by decision making, and the final element in our definition of governance that deserves further attention is the idea that in governance no formal control system can dictate the relationship and outcomes. Next is principle of governance. The first is transparent, accountability, independence, and fairness. Next is week 10 about governance within public administration and political science. In short, a positone public administration in the political science of making the fragment and dysregulated state work. The way of thinking about public administration and politics has changed in recognition of the changed conditions and practice of governing. The governance paradigm is about the central importance of how interaction of government and non-governmental actors are guided and directed in collective decision making. Next is 5 theories street. The first is network management theory, theories of delegation, social interpretive theories, the bound rationality school, and the last is cultural institutional theory. Next is week 11, link between governance and international relations. Governance has become a central concern of the IR discipline. The governance turned up the possibility of governing with governance, at least a recognition that nation-states operate in a complex institutional environmental in which their capacity for action is checked and balanced by power is not held solely in the hands of other nation-states alone. And for the IR literature, the focus on governance, particularly global governance, reflects many of the conceptual and methodological concerns on the discipline. Next is understanding relationship of power, the state through global governance, finance of the global architecture of governance, and the hegemony of neoliberalism. And week 12 about the link between governance and socio-legal study. Sociological studies evolved out of a tradition of empirical research conducted by anthropologists and sociologists that question and relationship between laws as understood within legal discipline and wider social process. Sociological study challenge each of these propositions stemming from a fundamentally different starting point, that law and the social context in which it operates must be studied together. And then the three pillars of governance. The first is organization, delegation of authority, and policies. Week 13 about corporate governance definition, and from hence the OECD views that role of corporate governance as twofold. Firstly, it covers the manner in which shareholders and then provide the widest and most attractive definition for our purpose, referring to governance as the determination of the broad use which organizational resource will be deployed and the resolution of conflicts among the myriad participants in organization. And then in economic theory, starting point of the corporate governance literature from an economic perspective rests on the question idea that the firms exist as a nexus or market contracts. There is a principal-agent relationship to be resolved and that the transaction costs involved in resolving these issues cannot be specific in the contract. Next is the comparison of governance system is legal explanation, political explanation, historical perspective, and convergence. And then week 14 about participation in governance. In the two last decades, participatory governance has become widespread as a practical response of a new context of governing. These postulations are dissimilar, sometimes contradictory, and reflect the wide range of theoretical tradition that endorse misrepresentation of one type that practice for another or equally wording that unspecific use of the stem leading to ambiguous interpretations. And then the last is with 15 about environmental governance definition. Environmental in governance is environmental policy scholars have commonly turned of the concept of international regime as the basis of environmental governance. They refer to a multiples of the different regime comprising at heart these issues point and fundamental collective action problem even in the forging of international agreement which would reduce uncertainty in interaction and make everyone better off than their very creation process of a collective action in dilemma. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.